You are Locked On Jets POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports New York on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Aaron Rodgers throws his first 300-yard game as a New York Jet. It is not enough as the Jets fall in overtime 32-26 to the Miami Dolphins, officially eliminating themselves from playoff contention, and now their playoff drought extends to 14 seasons. Welcome into the Locked On Jets POSTCAST. I am your host, Chris Schubert. Appreciate you joining us here for what has been another disappointing season for the New York Jets, and what is another disappointing result for us to discuss here on these postcasts. For those of you who maybe don't know a little bit about me, we got new people joining us every single week here for these postcasts. Lifelong Jets fan, Jets podcaster, have been covering this team for a long time. I love sharing my thoughts with you each and every week during the NFL season, good, bad, or indifferent when it comes to this team, and there has been a lot of bad. But the Jets fall to the Dolphins 32-26 in overtime, dropping to 3-10. Their draft position improved a little bit today. They now, I believe, have the 6th overall pick after today's loss. But you get your first 300-plus yard game for Aaron Rodgers, but it is not good enough. And I think the rightful place for us to start is for what felt like the first time in a while, the Jets played a almost complete game. In weeks past, we have seen this team show flashes in the first half. A really good offensive performance. The offense put things together the way that they are supposed to, that they were able to put points on the board and have a lead, or at least have the game be close going into the first half. Well, today they were able to put together a complete game, so we will have that all to break down for you here. But today's episode brought to you by Prize Picks. This episode brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. The Jets played well in this game up until about the fourth quarter, up until that last drive that forced things into overtime, because offensively, they didn't have Breece Hall in this game. They were still able to run the ball somewhat effectively with Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis. Aaron Rodgers had his first 300-yard game for the New York Jets, his first 300-yard passing game since Week 14 of 2021. So you have to go back almost 3 years for the last time Aaron Rodgers threw 300 yards in a game. He checked that box today. The offense for 4 quarters was moving the ball up and down the field. They were able to get the ball into the red zone. Yes, they didn't necessarily punch it in every single time. They had to settle for field goals. But what has been the criticism against this team when we have come here to do these postcasts? Great showing in the first half. They looked good in the first half. Second half, run out of steam, run out of gas, look like a team that wasted everything in the first half. The other team makes the right adjustments, and you lose the football game. That's been the MO. It has been the same script for this team every single week. Offense looks good in the first half. Offense loses steam in the second half. Some of the time they get the ball with a chance to win the game late, and they don't come through. That's been the recipe. More often than not, that has been the recipe for this team throughout this season. Today, a little bit different. It was their better, most complete showing in a long time. Now, the results are what the results are. They lost the football game in large part because they didn't finish the job. They didn't finish all 4 quarters. They took that 26-23 lead, and they made 2 very big mistakes that allowed the Dolphins to tie up the football game and then go into overtime, and then they never touch the ball, and they lose. But it was their best showing in a long time. You had Garrett Wilson, 7 catches for 114 yards. Davante Adams, 9 catches for 109 yards and a touchdown. The offensive line, up until Morgan Moses left this game, was doing a really nice job protecting Aaron Rodgers, allowing him to find Garrett Wilson, allowing him to find Davante Adams. That was probably the first time since Davante has gotten here where it felt like for the entirety of the game, he and Aaron Rodgers were on the same page, that things were clicking. On the drive where they kicked the field goal to take the 26-23 lead, on that 3rd and 21, it was very clear that those 2 guys were on the same page of what Adams needed to do there and where Rodgers was going to put the ball so that they could gain some of that yardage back to make the field goal a little bit more makeable. That's the experience. That's what we all thought they were getting when they traded for Davante Adams when the season was still up for grabs, when the playoffs were still a goal and aspiration for this team. Not so much anymore now that they're 3-10 officially eliminated, but that's what it was supposed to look like every single week. You have a quarterback and a wide receiver who have reps on reps on reps over and over and over again. They're supposed to just know each other like the back of their hand in those moments. You saw what that was supposed to look like. That was something that in weeks past, they're off by just a little bit, or that throw isn't necessarily where it needs to be. And instead of picking up those couple of extra yards to make the field goal more makeable, instead, maybe that ball gets thrown out of bounds, or Devontae Adams isn't able to come up with it because he doesn't run the right route, or isn't in the right spot, or Aaron Rodgers doesn't place the ball where it's supposed to, and now that field goal is a little bit further back. The Jets miss that field goal, and then they hand a short field to Miami. That's what we're used to seeing. It was the rare time where it worked out for the New York Jets. And let's call it like it is, because we have done this postcast and we have had a lot of conversations here discussing the constant failings of the New York Jets to go on the drive. And what do we mean by the drive? We mean game on the line, ball is with the offense, with Aaron Rodgers, with the side of the ball that's supposed to be able to come through in those moments. Aaron Rodgers was brought here to have drives like that. And 5 times previously, they haven't come through with those drives. You have to give credit where credit is due. Because today, Aaron Rodgers got the ball in that spot. Albeit it was a tie game, not the Jets trailing, but he took the team down the field and was able to execute the offense to put them in a position for an Anders Carlson field goal that allowed them to take the lead. Aaron Rodgers walked off the field today, putting the Jets in position to win the football game. He never got to touch the ball again in a meaningful spot. I think they got the ball with like 7 seconds left and they took the knee to go into overtime, but didn't get an opportunity after that, after making it 26-23, to do anything to try to win the football game. He walked off the field a victor. He walked off the field doing what we have asked him to do all season long, what they have been unable to do all season long. So you have to give credit where credit is due. I know what the result was, and I don't know if there's a lot of you out there that are necessarily disappointed with the result. For us in the community of, hey, maybe losing isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world because this is going to look different and you want to be in a position to get a quarterback, this result is probably the best thing. You look competitive. You don't embarrass yourself in a big way by getting blown out. Yes, you haven't beaten Miami in the last 9 tries, and you got to go back to 2015 for the last time they've done it. Yes, I get all that, but you lose. Your draft position isn't in a bad spot. So maybe the best of both worlds here, kind of like it was last week. But it is the margins when it comes to this football team. I will explain what I mean by that here on the other side. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free online courses, including, here are just a couple of the ones that are offered there: Constitution 101, the meaning and history of the Constitution, Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Great American Story, A Land of Hope, whole bunch of others. Do yourself a favor. Go to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. All of their courses are self-paced so that you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. Today's episode brought to you by Prize Picks. If you love watching the game, you're going to love Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy. Whether it's football, basketball, or any of your favorite sports, Prize Picks makes your holidays bigger and brighter. You can now win up to 200 times your money on Prize Picks. Plus, this holiday season, they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas and offering 2 free picks in December. And when your picks hit, Prize Picks makes it easy to cash out. You can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly when you play just $5. Prize Picks. Run your game. Good football teams with playoff aspirations, they win on the margins. That is where they find their most success. Today, the Jets were unable to do that. Welcome back into the Locked On Jets postcast. Chris Schubert here with you. Appreciate you joining us here after each and every Jets game throughout the year. Make sure, if you are brand new, if you're listening to us for the first time in the podcast feed, you're joining us for the first time over on the YouTube channel, Locked On Sports New York, do us a favor. What I'm about to ask you is free. It doesn't cost you anything. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Turn on that notification bell so you are notified every time we go live here on the Locked On Sports New York YouTube channel. You don't just get Jets coverage here. You've got the other team in town, the Giants. Jay Berman's doing that show, I believe, as we speak on this channel as well. He also has you covered on the Knicks side of things. And then when baseball season turns back around, maybe the Mets or Yankees will end up with Juan Soto. One of those two teams hopeful to have Juan Soto. Myself, Jay Berman, we've got you covered. Me on the Mets side, Jay's got you covered on the Yankee side for the Locked On Mets and Locked On Yankees postcast as well. So we've got you covered here with all of the New York sports. Do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell so you are notified when we go live, and you can join us live after each and every New York team is in action. The margins, those are the difference, because we talked about in the first segment how well this team played overall, that it was the best showing that we have seen. Again, this is a 3-10 football team. They lost today. I am not in any way attempting to sugarcoat what we saw today. They blew this game. They had a 23-15 lead. They had chances in the second half after taking that 8-point lead to have the ball and go down the field and put this game out of reach, right? What do I mean by it's the margins? Here's the perfect example. The Jets score a touchdown to make it 20-15. They then get their first stop of the game. I'll bring out the trusty notebook, and we haven't seen it in a little bit, but they get their first stop where they force Miami to punt with 9 minutes to go in the third quarter, right? They finally get that stop. They have a 20-15 lead. They get the ball with a 20-15 lead to try and extend this lead. And they don't go 3 and out, which is what I was worried about in real time. I texted a buddy and I said, this is the quintessential 3 and out drive here from the New York Jets. They go down the field, but they only get 3. So instead of making it 27-15 and having a 2-possession lead, they only make it an 8-point lead. That's what I mean by the margins. A good team, they go down the field when given that opportunity. They take the multi-score lead, and they put all the pressure on a Miami team that, let's face it, while they scored on every drive they had in the first half and the Jets defense was getting carved up, they weren't putting up a ton of points. They weren't cashing in touchdowns every single possession. So you had a chance there to really put all of the pressure on Miami with your defense doing enough up until that point to then have a 20-15 lead. You could have made it 27-15, allow your defense to relax a little bit, but no, it's only 23-15. It's only an 8-point lead. And then what happens? The Dolphins go down the field. They score a touchdown a little bit later. They get the 2-point conversion, and we are tied up. That's the thing. That's what I'm talking about. Those are the difference. The margins, special teams, defense. What happens after the Jets take a 26-23 lead? What happens after Aaron Rodgers does lead the Jets down the field on a drive to take the lead? What happens? A special teams mistake, a special teams blunder, where they allow a massive Parker Washington return to around midfield. Miami had no timeouts in their back pocket. They were inside of a minute. If you don't allow him to get out to the 45, basically near midfield, it is that much more difficult for Tua and this offense, which was struggling in the second half outside of the touchdown drive, to go down the field and put themselves into position. Instead, they go to around midfield after the Parker Washington return. They have 45 seconds. They can use the entirety of the field because they only need about 20 yards to be in range for Jason Saunders to attempt the field goal to tie the game, to force it into overtime. And then you get carved up on a couple of plays, and they are able to get into range. And if Tua doesn't miss, I believe it was an open Jalen Waddle on the 3rd and 4 play before they kick the field goal, they're in range for what is a chip shot field goal. They might even have a chance to take a shot at the end zone. Now, we don't know. We wouldn't have seen that. We don't know if they would have Bearsed it with some poor clock management. But the Jets defense got carved up. Then 26-26 going into overtime. What happens? The Jets lose the toss. Nothing you can do about that. It's a 50-50 chance. You lose the toss. They are able to take the ball, and you get carved up. Jonnu Smith carves you up, and I don't think I'd have to go back and look and chart all of the games. I can't remember watching a game the way I watched today's game and constantly found myself watching the Miami Dolphins offense run the same play over and over and over again. To me, that showed the lack of respect that the Dolphins and their offensive coaching staff had for the Jets defense, that they felt comfortable being able to run the same plays over and over and over again. How many times did we see the Dolphins run that little halfback screen where Devon Achane ran out wide on an angle and then cut back up? For those of you out there that play the college football video game, NCAA 25 now, but maybe you played 14, HB angle, where the running back comes out of the backfield and basically makes a triangle and is open over the middle of the field. They ran that, 3 or 4 times? They then flipped it to the other side of the field and they beat you on it. And then they did something that I think can only be described as disrespect. They ran the same play, back-to-back plays to Jonnu Smith. Not with a different wrinkle. It was the same play. It was a tight end screen to Jonnu Smith, and on both occasions you got burned. You got burned. The margins, that's what I'm talking about. A team can run the same play against you twice. Does that happen for good teams? No. They stop it. The penalties. DJ Reed committing a brutal pass interference penalty on the touchdown drive that tied the game up at 23. The penalties were brutal again here today. Allen Lazard back off of IR. 2 penalties in this game in a key spot. So you just have all of the things. Despite it being their best effort overall, despite it being the best effort that we've seen from this team in the last couple of weeks, it was still the same stuff that came through once again. A defense in a big spot not coming through, the penalties in big spots popping up, and the little things, special teams, making tackles in open space, a defense running the same plays against you over and over and over again, and you didn't have an answer for it. Now, please, don't confuse that for, there were some good plays in this game today. There was some bright spots. We're going to close this show by discussing some of those bright spots and then diving into some of the other numbers from this game. But it's the margins. The margins are where you win football games in the NFL. And the Jets, over and over and over again, seemingly are unable to win those margins. You want a stat that shows you why those margins don't go the Jets' way? Zach Rosenblatt, who covers the Jets for The Athletic. Over the last 3 weeks, this is what the Jets were leading going into these last 3 opponents. They were up 23-15 today against the Dolphins. They were up 21-16 against the Seahawks. They were up 17-16 against the Colts. They lost all 3 of those games. When you are looking at a team that is 3-10 and is eliminated in the postseason, and now for the 14th straight year, which is the longest streak in all of the 4 major pro sports right now, the New York Jets have that. Why? You have 3 fourth-quarter leads that you blow. You have 5 opportunities with the game on the line. You give the ball to Aaron Rodgers, and you can't come through with a game-winning drive. That's why. The margins. That's why the New York Jets are sitting here at 3-10. That's why we are frantically refreshing Tankathon after every result to see if the Jets are going to move up and down the board. Same old Jets. Could be 2021, could be 2022, could be 2020. Doesn't matter. Here we are, late in the season, already talking about a Jets team that is eliminated. And truthfully, they've been eliminated for the last couple of weeks. We will wrap up. The future is bright. Some really nice performances today that I believe deserve a shout-out. So we will get to those here on the other side. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We already mentioned it, Aaron Rodgers with a 300-plus yard game, his first in a Jets uniform, his first since Week 14 of the 2021 season. That's not the only performance worth shouting out here today here on the Locked On Jets postcast. And if you want even more thoughts, make sure you're tuned into the Locked On Jets podcast. John's got you covered with even more big-picture thoughts coming out of today's 32-26 overtime loss to the Miami Dolphins. The Jets fall to 3-10, officially eliminated from playoff contention. The Miami Dolphins 6-7 stay alive in the AFC playoff race, and the Jets now make it 9 in a row down in Miami that they have lost. So that has become almost New England-esque for them, a house of horrors for them down there in Miami. The last time they won a game down in Miami, Rex Ryan was the head coach. You wonder why there are some out there that want Rex Ryan to return to this team as the head coach next season, because unfortunately, a lot of the good old days for this team date back to that era. There has not been a lot in between, but that's for a future episode. That's why you stay tuned to the Locked On Jets podcast, because John has you covered with all of the things like that. No Breece Hall in this game here today, and I'm not going to I'll give you the box score numbers, but we're not going to just evaluate this based off of the box score. But Braylon Allen, 11 carries, 43 yards. Isaiah Davis, 10 carries, 40 yards, and he got into the end zone. And I'll tell you, the Jets hit a home run here with these two picks. They got two extra pieces for their running back room, and they have one of the more dynamic running back rooms you're going to see in all of football, and that is an advantage. You are starting to see slowly, but you are starting to see a reemergence of the running back position and the utilization of the running back. And if you can have a two-headed or a three-headed monster, you can put some defenses into some really difficult positions. You can put them into a tough bind. And you saw today, even without Breece Hall, they were able to have 4 yards per carry. They were able to get to almost 100 yards. Isaiah Davis looked really good out of the backfield. Both of these guys, not only running the ball, but catching the ball. Braylon Allen added 4 catches out of the backfield. Isaiah Davis with 3 catches out of the backfield. They were good in the check down. They were good out in space. They were just really good complementary pieces to one another. And this is what the Jets thought they were going to get when they drafted these guys. Breece Hall was going to carry a lot of the workload, but we believe strongly that we have 2 guys that can also provide us some extra coverage. Braylon Allen being the number 2. Isaiah Davis, you thought maybe special teams would be where he would get his start to start the year. But now with Breece Hall on the sideline, I wonder if the Jets kind of shut him down to end the season. You don't want to take any chances. You're 3-10. You're eliminated from playoff contention. Give these 2 guys a run. This season is over. They're 3-10. Winning football games doesn't really matter. You've already fired the coach. You fired the GM. You are starting over. So there's no winning to save jobs, at least in the coaching ranks, right? That's basically done. We have been forecasted that they are going to clean house across the board when it comes to the rest of this coaching staff at the end of the season. So why not give Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis a run here? Why not give those guys an opportunity to showcase their skills down the stretch, to see what you have, to put some stuff on tape for the next regime, the next coach, the next GM that are in here? That would be a suggestion in my mind. Another huge performance, Jamie Sherwood was all over the place today. I did not count in real time, so I'm glad that I have the box score for this. 18 total tackles, 3 solo tackles, 2 tackles for loss, a pass defended. He was awesome. He and Brandon Eccles deserves a shout out for how well those 2 guys played today. They stepped up in a big way. You didn't have Sauce Gardner. CJ Mosley's on IR. You had Jamie Sherwood step up in the middle of the field, and then you had Brandon Eccles on the back end step up in a big way as well. Those 2 guys deserve all the kudos in the world. They were flying all over the place. They were making plays in space. They were playing with energy. They were playing with passion. It was part of the reason why the Jets were able to kind of have that bend but don't break philosophy that we've seen from them and their defense a lot of the time. Not just this season, but in years past under Robert Saleh. They kind of had a bend but don't break approach. Yeah, you might be able to get some stuff underneath, but we're not letting the big play over the top. And when you compress the field, you're down in the red zone, you're going to be settling for 3 a lot of the time. That's what the Jets kind of looked like today in the first half, in large part because Jamie Sherwood was making plays, Brandon Eccles was making plays. I will say, there were some positives, all the positives. I do want to make a note. The Jets did not have a single sack in this game today. Going back to our previous segment about the margins. Gotta have sacks, gotta have pressure. You can't let Tua just sit back in the pocket. I mean, he ended the day 33 of 47 for 331 yards and 2 touchdowns in the first half. In the first quarter for the Dolphins, they had 16 plays in the first quarter, 9 first downs. I thought we were in for another Cardinals-esque performance, where the Cardinals were just all over the Jets from the word go, and it was getting ugly in a hurry. That's what I thought we were going to get when it came down to it, but it did not. The Jets' defense, in large part because of the job that Jamie Sherwood and Brandon Eccles were able to provide. The Jets were able to keep this game close, force it into overtime, and then their special teams doomed them at the end of the game. Their defense doomed them at the end of the game, and very similarly to the way we saw them kind of collapse against New England after taking the lead, their defense just didn't have it in the end of regulation, and they didn't have it at the end of overtime, and they fall 32-26 in overtime to fall 3-10 and officially eliminate themselves from the postseason. So the most complete performance we have seen from this team in a while. Thought they were going to pull that one out, so we were going to have a positive show to do here for the Locked On Jets postcast. It's been a little bit since we've had one. The last win that they had was the Houston Texans. The last 3 postcasts that we provided here, Colts, Seahawks, Dolphins, have all been bad, and we will see what the future holds for this team. But we appreciate you joining us here on the Locked On Jets postcast as the Jets drop their, 9th in a row down in Miami. They lose their 4th in a row this season. They fall to 3-10, eliminated from the playoffs, and now their streak, 14 straight seasons without a postseason berth for the New York Jets. Next up, it is off to Jacksonville to take on the Jacksonville Jaguars, who won today. So it is a battle of 3-10 teams in the NFL. clear the schedule, folks. You're going to want to make sure that you are there for that one. We will have you covered here on the Locked On Sports New York YouTube channel after that game. We will have it covered for you. We will give you all of the analysis for the New York Jets after they take on the Jags next week. But we appreciate joining us here on this edition of the Locked On Jets Postcast. One more time, make sure you subscribe, you turn on that notification bell so that you are notified when we go live after each and every Jets game this season. But we appreciate you joining us here, even though it was another loss for the New York Jets as they fall to 3-10. They play their most competitive game in the last couple of weeks. They go into overtime, but it was for naught as they fall to 3-10. See you, everybody.